Welcome to the New Life Stories channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching.
When you have been in a relationship with the same person for more than a decade, it is quite normal that monotony sets in and things slowly fade away. However, every couple strives to keep the flame alive and make their private moments recurring, enjoyable, and fun for both of them. I say this now, but until a couple months ago, I didn't think I could accomplish this with my husband. Let me tell you this story. Long story short, our marriage was struggling, we were no longer communicating effectively, and we weren't spending time alone as regularly as we would have liked. When you live as a couple with the same person for so long, inevitably the responsibilities of home, work, and children can overwhelm anyone, and that's exactly what was happening to us. Walter and I realized the situation as it worsened, and the fact is that the tension in our relationship was making life difficult for both of us. He was having problems at work, and I couldn't concentrate on writing my latest book. My creativity was completely blocked because deep down I was afraid I couldn't make sense of the situation. Although it was obvious to both of us that we were having a hard time, neither of us could put aside our pride, sit down and listen to what the other had to say, much less try to put ourselves in their shoes. Luckily, my best friend Thea is a psychologist who specializes in relationship problems, and when I told her what was going on with me, she offered to give us free therapy sessions. At first I declined. I couldn't be such a bad friend as to not compensate her financially for her work. But then I thought the situation was already stressful enough at home to offer Walter another expense. There was no way he would agree under those circumstances, so I took my friend up on her offer and suggested we go to a couple sessions. After all, we had nothing to lose. But I didn't think it would work. Walter is a very reserved person. I had trouble understanding him at the best of times, but I sensed the hopelessness of the situation, and we needed to exhaust every possible resource to save our marriage. Otherwise, we would have to separate, and after all, we had both made vows for life. Despite the difficulties, we love each other, and I know that neither of us would want to see our family destroyed in this way, much less without trying. Anyway, Walter agreed, and we went to our first therapy session with Thea. I was more nervous than anything because I didn't know how he would behave. After all, it was just another day for me to tell my friend about my sorrows. But I decided to leave everything in her hands as a professional and make sure he felt supported. Welcome, Walter and Alice. Make yourself comfortable and make yourself at home. I know we're close friends, but while we're seeing each other in this office, I want you to see, Thea said, and I felt butterflies in my stomach. I didn't expect us to broach the subject so soon. I couldn't wait to hear what he had to say. We do it barely once or twice a week. It's not like it used to be. I think she does it just to satisfy me, Walter said, and his words pierced my chest like knives. It wasn't like that at all. I still love him like I did on the first day. What do you think about that, Alice? Do you share Walter's opinion? How do you feel about the confidentiality of your relationship? Thea asked. I didn't realize he felt that way. Yes, it's true that we no longer have these moments as often as we used to, and the way we do it has become routine. But my feelings for him remain intact, and I love him as I did on day one. I'm willing to do anything to save our marriage, I said, and noticed Walter's eyes moisten. It's obvious to me that the love between you two is still there, so I'm going to propose a series of games to rekindle the flames of passion in this room. Of course, you can't be prejudiced or closed to everything your partner wants to try, within healthy boundaries and what you yourself are willing to allow. The idea is for you to get out of your routine, try something new, and show each other the love you still feel as a couple, Thea said. The therapy she offered us consisted of role-playing. We were able to recreate anything we could think of, both in and out of the home. In her opinion as an expert, stepping out of our own roles to impersonate others would be helpful to let go of the conflicts we have and focus only on pleasing ourselves. We both agreed to do this so we could tell her about our perceptions at our next session. We went home that afternoon full of anticipation. Although I didn't know what to expect, I could tell that Walter was enthusiastic about the idea, and I felt it might work. My suspicions were not immediately confirmed. As soon as we got out of the car, my husband unexpectedly patted my butt, and I immediately recognized the mischievous boy I had fallen in love with. I decided to surprise him the next day at his office. I snuck out while he was eating lunch and waited for him in an outfit I knew he would love. When he walked in, I caught him off guard and whispered in his ear for him to tell the receptionist not to bother us, which he did. Walter was amazed when he saw me. He immediately started kissing me, threw everything off the desk, and I settled there. "Since you're a bad girl, what will your husband think of this?" he said, looking at me angrily. "I need someone to teach me discipline," I told him and grimaced. He liked it so much that it was happening regardless of the fact that we were in his office and his secretary was a few meters away. I felt just like I did at the beginning of our relationship. My breathing was heavy and my heart was beating hard, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew he was enjoying it too. Then I walked out of his office as if nothing had happened, but with confidence that the experiment had been a success and anticipation of what was to come the next time we met. The next day, Walter came home from work and invited me to dinner at a fancy restaurant we hadn't been to in a while, with a special request that I wear a dress. I did just that. I put on a cocktail dress I'd powdered in my closet, pulled out my favorite heeled shoes, and put on makeup like a movie star. He was thrilled with my appearance. As we sat at the table waiting for the waiter to bring the food we had ordered, he asked me to come closer and whispered something in my ear. "Now I want us to play that I am a married man and you are my secret affair. So I want you to take off what you are wearing and give it to me under the table," he said. I was excited by his suggestion, but nervous at the same time because there were people around. It was a public place, anyone could see us. I smiled mischievously at him and started the maneuver as discreetly as I could. I looked around to see if anyone noticed what I was doing, but everyone seemed to be immersed in their conversations and the restaurant staff was dedicated to their work. So getting my lacy panties off was no problem. But then the waiter came over with the food and I completely froze. I smiled at him as he put everything on the table and thought it was now or never. Taking advantage of the fact that he was standing next to us, I pulled my clothes down to my ankles and deliberately dropped my napkin on the floor. Then, bending down to pick up the napkin, I picked up my panties as well and as soon as the waiter left, handed it to Walter under the table. "That was very clever of you. I could be wrong, but I bet I felt moisture on it," Walter whispered with a smile. And I winked back at him. We devoured our food and headed straight to the car. Throughout the evening, I slid my foot down his leg like any lover would. By the time we paid the bill, we were both extremely horny. As soon as we got in the car, things got out of control. There seemed to be very little oxygen, not to mention the heat we were generating ourselves, but we didn't need much time. We were too caught up in what was about to happen. "I bet your wife doesn't do it to you like that," I told him, and he must have really liked it because things immediately became even more intense. In this confined space where we could barely move, we remembered why we were together and the intensity of the feelings still palpable between us. In a daze, images of our best moments together flashed through my mind. When we first held hands, our first date, our first kiss, our vacation, our wedding. I closed my eyes and let myself go. I realized it was over when from one moment to the next he let out a triumphant exhale. Thea and I came to the second session completely happy. We both expressed our gratitude and satisfaction with the results we had gotten with her method, and she recommended that we continue to provoke each other. "I want to take things to a higher level," Walter interjected, and we both listened eagerly. I have to admit that I was very intrigued by what he was going to offer me. "This could be interesting for our relationship, Walter." "What do you want to offer Alice?" asked Thea. "I want to see her with the other two men in our room," he said, and I suddenly felt a huge void form in my stomach. Unsure, I forgot how to breathe for a minute and then came to my senses right after that. "Wow, Alice, are you ready to give him that kind of pleasure?" My friend asked me, and I looked from her to Walter. What was I supposed to say? We were getting our marriage back. I would give him anything he wanted. "Okay, if that's what you want," I replied, and his face lit up with happiness. His offer struck me as odd. Walter wasn't the sharing type, at least I didn't think so. I freed my mind from my prejudices and decided to write it off as a fantasy that would have no purpose or meaning other than the emotions he might feel from witnessing it. The next evening, Walter had everything ready. He told me to be ready and wait for him in our room. Then he walked in with two men I knew very well. One was Matthew, his best friend, and the other was Quentin, a mutual friend of ours that I had dated before we got married. I was completely surprised, but swallowing, I decided not to dismiss my husband's fantasy. We immediately undressed. The situation was completely new to me because although I had done it before, it had never happened with more than one participant at a time. I didn't know exactly what to do, so I let them take control. I closed my eyes and surrendered. At some point, I stopped distinguishing what anyone was doing. I just let myself get carried away by the sensations that were overwhelming my being at that moment. I felt like a toy created by nature for the amusement of this pair of rough men, but I have to admit that there were moments when I was surprised myself that I was enjoying it, and I made sure to look Walter in the eye when I did it. We agreed that what happened that night would not happen again, although I wouldn't mind. Every day since then, Walter has been relentless in reminding me every day how much he loves me and how important I am to him. At the next therapy session, we told Thea about the results of that interesting experiment Walter had come up with, logically not revealing any details. I told her something else in confidence later, though, as we drank coffee. She was puzzled, and several times we laughed at my impressions of the situation. I really enjoy talking to her because she is always open. She never judges me for anything. Now that I'm telling you this story in retrospect, I realize that calling on my friend's professional experience was the right decision because right after what I just told you, we found the flame between us reignited and I became the most appetizing girl in the world to him after what I agreed to do. Our anniversary is coming up soon, and I'm thinking of throwing a special party to celebrate Walter and I's love, but the only guests will be Matthew and Quentin, and maybe someone else. I'm sure he'll love the idea. What do you think about it? Will you go to any lengths to save your marriage? If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments or give this video a like. Thank you, and until next time.